Hi guys, this is Timotheus. In this video, I'll introduce the Roman gladiator type called Murmillo. If you haven't seen the video I introduced, the 7 most popular gladiator types of Imperial Rome, I suggest you check that out first. The link's in the description below. And for the rest of you, enjoy the video. The Murmillo's name derives from murmo, which means striped bream. That's a kind of fish that's commonly found in the Mediterranean. It is said that this type of gladiator owes his name to his helmet, though it's not very obvious why. I've seen a photograph of what seems to be a murmillo with a fish on top of the crest of his helmet, but this seems to be pretty rare. It's also possible that he was named after a fish because of the rather fin-like crest itself. As for the murmillo's origin, there is a chance that this type evolved out of the Republican gladiator type called Gallus, which means Gaul, or in British English, Gaul. Let's talk about the Murmillo's equipment. I mentioned the subligaculum, or loincloth, the manica, or arm guard, and the ocria, or shin guard, in my video on the Provocator, and they're more or less the same for the Murmillo, so if you want to know more about those, you can always check out that video. The Murmillo's cassis, or galea, looks really impressive. Like I said, it has a fin-like crest on top, which is sometimes decorated with horsehair. Like most gladiator helmets, they're also sometimes decorated with one feather on the left and one on the right. All helmets evolved throughout the imperial period, but the change is perhaps easiest to notice in those of the Murmillo. I made this illustration to give you an idea of how they evolved. At first, the brim encircled the head, which doesn't seem to offer much protection from anything other than a downward slash of the opponent's sword. But gradually, the brim encircled the face and the neck for more protection. This also seems much more effective against a punch to the face with a shield. Here's a real example of each. When you see these pictures next to each other, you can clearly see how they, after they decided to cover up the face, experimented to try and offer the gladiator better vision and facilitate his breathing. In the last picture, you can see how breathing and looking straight ahead probably wouldn't be much of a problem, but as my experience with a replica of one of these helmets confirms, peripheral vision is extremely limited. You almost feel like you're a horse wearing blinkers. For the scutum and the gladius, I also refer you to my Provocator video, although I should note that the scuta used by the Murmillones seem to have rounded corners less often. As opposed to the Provocator, the Murmillo does not have a breastplate. This makes trying to get an opening between the scutum and the cassis in order to hit the throat or the chest an attractive strategy for his opponents. Speaking of opponents, Murmillones are most often seen fighting parmulari, which are small shield fighters. They can move about more freely than Murmillones because they don't have to carry the heavy scutum. This is either the Thraex, who had a curved sica, which he could use to try and get around the Murmillo scutum. This is a real example. Or the Hoplomachus, who could use his hasta to try and stay out of the Murmillos gladius's reach long enough to wear him out. And here's an example of those two, with the Murmillo to the right and the Hoplomachus to the left. Note how the Murmillo scutum that has fallen to the ground reveals a horizontal center grip. There is also mention of the Retiarius as an opponent for the Murmillo. It certainly looks nice to pit a fish against a fisherman. Perhaps this is even one of the reasons why the Murmillo was named after a fish, but depictions of these two fighting are rare. That's it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed the video, you can help me out by hitting the like button, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. If you'd like to learn more about one of the other gladiator types, click on the links in the description below. This was Timotheus. Thanks for watching.